Alright, in this video we're going to get into happiness and spiral dynamics. How spiral dynamics will make you happy. And here it is, I'll just jump right into it. Let's go down the stages. Stage beige is survival instincts. Stage purple is developing tribes. Now, happiness in these stages is not really relevant, except in purple. You might say that once you have your survival needs satisfied of having a tribe and hunting and gathering enough food, then you're happy. But generally speaking, what happens is you have the traditions that are become important, so that becomes one of your societal needs, or not society, it's tribal needs. And so if you respect the traditions, then you're happy, then your tribe's happy, and everyone's happy. Is this true happiness? So it happens to be that when you're active, when you're proactive and you're busy surviving, you have no time to really think about your life. So any stage where you're busy, that becomes a coping mechanism, and this will apply to all stages. So it's not really happiness, it's just distraction. And that's why depression didn't really exist 500 years ago, because everyone was trying to make ends meet. I mean, they had a less of a quality of life, but they weren't necessarily depressed. They just kept doing the next thing. They were maybe somber, maybe sad, maybe serious, you see, and they didn't smile in a lot of these old photos like 200 years ago, 150 years ago. Then you get into stage red, where they are interested in conquest. Also very survival of the fittest like. And so this stage will be happy if they are accomplishing great endeavors. Usually involves territory and land and asserting your power at the expense of others. And then blue discovers happiness, quote unquote. They say true happiness is meaning. It's not that true happiness is meaning, it's that compared to where they were, you needed to have some kind of purpose for the collective. That was the next stage. And so that gives them a sense of drive, that gives them a sense of purpose, sure, because that's what the point is, to create purpose. But it gives them a sense that they're going somewhere. And that inspires them. When you hear the national anthem, people get goosebumps. Because you're a part of a country, you're a part of something. Nationalism is very blue. Nothing wrong with nationalism, necessarily, except in excess. And later on, you'll see there is something wrong with it, because we're all one planet, the global mind develops later on. So happiness in each stage, happiness is short-lived. And there's only going to come a time where happiness begins later on that we'll get into. The next stage after blue is orange. Orange is about prosperity, personal success. This is the stage that loses sight of happiness the most, because they think that the goal is the point. And they're always chasing after something. And it's material, and you can never have enough material. So they get lost in the chase, in achieving the goal, but never really feel content with it. They never feel good about it. Then you get into stage green, which all the flaws of orange have led to, of not caring about anyone else's success except your own. So you're treading upon the ethics without realizing it. The necessity for caring about other people's lives, and so this gets dealt with, and that brings a new level of meaning. So you advance to a higher level of happiness, so to speak, because you have true meaning. It's not about blue's collective mindedness for the sake of the community, and which ends up blinding you and giving charity to those who serve the community agenda the most, right? Meaning you'll give charity to this person over that person because they serve the community more. So it's a little bit selfish. They're not, but they don't realize this. So I don't blame them, and there are people who are in blue hearing this, they'll run away in fear, like, oh my gosh, this guy, he's accusing me of being selfish. So you'll realize your own selfishness as you advance stages. That's just how it works. Just by when you get into older stages, later stages, you realize your own selfishness and you accept it. And that helps you advance even faster, because you're no longer denying how you are. So there comes a point where you kind of plateau. You have to, because how fast could you develop? It's another discussion. So in green you have a newfound happiness, and in yellow you start to have a more broader understanding of reality. You're more intellectual and you start categorizing things, so you feel safer. So in terms of feeling secure, that goes up, and that actually is a biological need, psychological need, security. And it's also so you're not having as much paranoia because you kind of predict a lot more things. Orange predicts it because they have good categorization skills, but yellow takes it to a whole new level. And in this masculine phase, you're labeling, categorizing everything, understanding everything as much as you can, and doing it fairly easily. And knowing how things work in society, the root of things and all that. But they're always chasing something. So it's not the highest state. And then the next stage is the quote-unquote highest stage. And you'll always see that there's higher stage. In this stage, you reach a newfound stage of ego dissolution or detachment to your own self or image in the camera. So instead of this being the most important thing, it's not. You realize that you're a sham, that there's an ego that makes you care about this, and it's not who you are. And that you constantly fluctuate. When you get depressed, it's the ego, it's not you. It's just the part of you that is the baggage part of you that says you have to impress these people and you have to make more money so you can feel better and more secure. So once you take a step back and realize that, that brings you to a whole newfound level of contentment, because you realize it's just thoughts saying that you're not good enough and that you need these survival needs. So that's turquoise. And this is very important because this is the highest state of being, right? But no, there's higher. But you're at a new tier 2. Yellow is tier 2, but turquoise is like 2.5. It's like you're halfway there to the next tier in a sense. It's a new phase. So it's not really tier 3 yet. Coral is the next stage, and I often label it as tier 3. But it's not. It's just you sometimes have psychic abilities, you sometimes have visions, but you have to be in like a positive state of mind. So like when people are prophets, it's usually these tier 2 stages that they've reached, they've accessed, ego dissolution. And usually people in their 50s who are leaders and they feel like okay with themselves and not too stressed out, they can have visions and they tend to understand what these forces are, and they're usually in stage turquoise. There's an opinion that stage turquoise doesn't believe in the devil, no self, right? But that's part of the stage. Part of the stage is to strip all thoughts. So the no self or the nothing is God, like the peace, everything is God, and that becomes love to some and not love to others. But the nothing or the serenity becomes God, which is, you'll see later, is also true. But there's a process to understanding. And then in coral, you keep dissolving the ego, but the ego remains in a new light, and there's a parallel between this stage and previous stages. So the parallel for coral would be red, they say, and red is interested in conquest. How could you be interested in conquest at such a high stage? So the answer is that you're not interested in conquering territory or being ravenous, pillaging. You're interested in outdoing your friends in wisdom, in understanding. This also existed in yellow, but but now you're psychic, so now you're there's no self. Now you feel like your heart is lighter. You don't take things as seriously anymore. And so the happiness level is completely doubled or whatever. It's like a contentment. In turquoise, you don't fear death, and in coral, it's now like you don't fear death, but you still pursue conquering anyways because it's a parallel to older phases. And then in stage teal, it's the parallel to blue. So you'll then want community, and you'll be happy when people find their place. That's your contentment. But that's that's like the ego version of the contentment. That's what it is. Within every tier 2 stage, you're gonna have the stage's new ego desires. So for the teal, it's seeing everyone who's happy, you know. But part of these advancements have to do with basic biological needs. So the reason why orange could develop is because they had a big enough society where you can structure things much more efficiently. And so too, once people advance enough, then ego needs kind of dissolve in the lower spectrum and move up to a higher spectrum. So this is not to say eradicate all the reds and the blues and the orange. No. I'm saying help them advance so that they can, so that we can all grow together. And at this stage, there's some kind of understanding that you're all connected, whether it's psychic or spiritual or it's energetic and scientific. You have this new realization that we're all connected. And that becomes important for advancing because we are all affecting each other. So the happiness is up because there's meaning, right? But I think the highest happiness and contentment comes from just being turquoise, being tier 2. And that will keep going up perpetually, exponentially, the word is, in my opinion. But in terms of stages, eventually there has to be a plateau, right? So that's a separate discussion. And so the biggest paradox is the next stage, mauve, because they're interested in truth. They're interested in what is the truth of the matter, but they're not attached to themselves anymore. And so these tier 2 stages will be acting. I was considering that stage mauve or aubergine would be tier 3 because there's no way that you can't have psychic abilities at this point because there's so little ego that you become one with everyone, and so you'll hear their thoughts, you'll hear voices, or you'll just be in an energetic plane of reception, like you're like a transceiver or an antenna, just absorbing everyone's opinions, ideas, maybe hearing them, maybe absorbing extraterrestrial knowledge, maybe juxtaposed dimensions. But because of that, I was thinking of considering a tier 3, but that's not related to the happiness discussion. The happiness contentment discussion always relates to the newfound ego dissolution. And so even though they seem angry or they seem upset because something is not true, that's all a fiction. It's all like a facade, because in truth they're probably the most content. They're probably the most egoless people on the planet. But the ego is still there, it just becomes a lighter color. And that's why I think Ken Wilber labeled stage clear or light, because it's no longer a color. It's just nothing. Your state of nothingness. So I had maybe it's for a separate video, but I think I reached stage clear. I'm not sure. I have to get into it. I think what I did was I accessed stage clear, and I want to speak about it in a methodical way. So we'll do that in the next video, hopefully. So that's it. That's happiness in relation to spiral dynamics. Up until stage orange, you're miserable because you're always searching for something else. Red is more present in the moment, so that while orange is too much focus on the goal. So they could be more depressed than red. Could be. But the quality of life increases, so that balances things out another way. Blue is focused on meaning, amber, right? Focused on meaning. That fills in a certain need, but they can become overly prideful and into their community, and that will lead them to be to be selfish to the community, and even selfish among the community, with very little oversight on how really they should conduct their thoughts. So I'm not saying be the thought police, but that certainly is an issue that goes on there. And so the happiness level is not there until green, where it buds, and yellow you feel security, and then turquoise, not only security, but you feel like okay with reality, because it's all in our minds. We can just meditate and then you'll be okay. And then lower stages hate that. They hate that. Like stage orange and even green to an extent hates turquoise's preoccupation with meditation. Except green, who doesn't have any orange, will like turquoise. But green, who still has to find a job and still feels pulled down by orange necessities, the orange system will dislike turquoise. So the happiness begins in green and it increases till turquoise, and then you're in a new stage of ego dissolution, and therefore you're always happy. And even though you don't seem happy, you're always the lessening of the ego makes you always more content and happy. So you're always happy. And then by the time you hit stage clear, it's probably bliss. Have a good day.